Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Welcome to a new installment in the Kicking It Old School series, a series aimed at people that are newer to the D&D hobby and taking mechanics or systems that they may be familiar with based on 5th edition and put them in a more historical context. Today we're going to be talking about something that popped up in my 2nd edition AD&D Ranger video, where in the comments someone had mentioned the fact that they really didn't like the leveling system in older editions of D&D. So that's what we're going to be talking about here today. For the modern context in 5th edition, all classes gain their levels at the same experience point progression. All classes gain 2nd level at 300 experience points. All classes gain 3rd level at 900, etc. Now, with 1st edition AD&D, 2nd edition AD&D, 0 edition D&D, and the basic expert, as well as the BECMI rules, Rule Cyclopedia, they had a different way of having the characters progress through. So we're just going to take a quick look here at the different character classes, and we'll see the numbers that they require to go from 1st to 2nd level. We're just going to use that because it's pretty much the same throughout the entire progression. So, for example, fighters gain 2nd level at 2,000 experience points. Paladins and rangers gain 2nd level at 2,500 experience points. The wizard class actually requires the most experience points to gain a level. So to go from 1st to 2nd level, they require 2,500 experience points. The priest classes in older D&D have the cleric, which requires 1,500 experience points to level up, and the druid, which requires 2,000 experience points to level. And then, of course, we have our poor, lowly rogue class, our thief, and our bard. Again, for the 2nd edition version, the bard only requires 1,250 experience points to go from 1st to 2nd level, as does the thief, which has the shortest or the quickest progression to go through their levels. So the reasoning behind this basically has to do with the fact that it's their TSR's way of essentially trying to balance the classes. So if you take a look at more modern D&D, the classes are balanced on a more mechanical level. So the different classes will all have relatively good, powerful abilities that they can use reliably in combat, where no one class typically outshines another. They're all very good at what they do, and they all contribute rather well together in a combat situation. Now, with the older versions of the game, certain classes just weren't as good as others, and it's not even a matter of opinion, it's just the way that it is. The thief class, for example, has the worst armor proficiencies in the game for classes that can actually wear armor. They have a pretty poor selection of weapons that they can utilize. They have one of the weaker hit dice for hit points in the game, and they have a pretty average attack progression. Their main combat ability, their backstab in these older versions of the D&D game, are incredibly difficult to pull off, and you're only likely to get it once in a fight, maybe twice if you're lucky, but it's very, very difficult for them to get their backstab, and their backstab ability overall is kind of underwhelming. The fighters are one of the most reliable classes in the game, and that's why they have one of the highest progressions in the game, because they're pretty much always going to be useful in combat because they are built to swing weapons and deal damage, but that's really all that they can do. The class that has the most potential power in the game, the one that can dominate combat the most as you go through the system or as they go through levels, has to be the wizard class, which is why they have the most experience points required to gain levels. So this, like I said, it was an earlier way of trying to balance the system, with the weaker classes gaining levels quicker than the more reliable or powerful classes. It's an interesting concept, although I do think it is a little bit flawed, because even though a high-level wizard that can use lightning bolts, fireballs, and power word kill is absolutely a force to deal with on the battlefield, it takes them a long time to get there. A first-level wizard is the worst class really in the entire game because they have the weakest hit dice at only a D4, they have no armor proficiency, they've got the worst weapon choice in the game altogether, they have the worst attack bonus progression, or the worst attack progression for THAC0, or the matrices that you would roll on for older editions. The only thing that they really have is their spells, and a first level wizard only has a single spell, and once they use it, they basically live in constant fear of anything and everything because they have so few hit points. The idea is that because their potential power is so great, it takes them a long time to progress through levels, even though that low levels, they are actually relatively weak overall. So it's an attempt at balancing. It's based off of overall potential and not necessarily a level by level consideration of how powerful the classes is. If they would have gone level by level, I can assure you that a first level wizard would require a lot less than 2,500 experience points to gain second, and their longer progression or their higher requirements probably wouldn't kick in until around going from 5th to 6th or 4th to 5th. But yeah, there you go. So it was an early attempt at game balancing. Like I said, more modern systems attempt to balance the actual class abilities and not just control how quickly or how slowly they level to keep everybody on a relatively similar scale. Like rogues will always gain levels in the earlier editions a lot faster, so they'll have more hit points. They'll go through their attack progression faster than the other classes, but they'll probably still never really be as good as a fighter of equal level in terms of what they can do. So it's, like I said, it's an early, interesting way of balancing things. It's not what I would necessarily go with, but it is an interesting concept. So that is sort of the reason behind it. It's to try to keep everybody on relatively equal footing because the classes are not designed equally in the older versions of D&D. Now let me know in the comments below, what do you prefer personally? Do you prefer that the classes are balanced on a mechanical level with one another so that they're all equally effective, all equally decent, and all gaining levels at the same time? Or do you prefer to have the system like we had back in the day where classes aren't balanced against one another in terms of what they can do? The only way to really regulate them is how long it takes them to gain their levels. So let me know that in the comments below what your thoughts are on that, or if you are completely unaware that this was the way that it used to be done back in the day. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all next time. Take care.